This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast.
Maybe both.
I know. I want to say watching, but because I'm looking at myself and at you, but it is listening. Brought to you by nobody.
That's right.
Brought to you by nobody. The future of the podcast in danger. Brought to you by nobody. More about that later. We could really use some sponsors, but brought to you by nobody. How are you, Ryan?
I'm okay. We're right here. And by the time you hear this podcast, we will be filming season 3 of House of the Dragon. So it's been there's such a long run up. I mean, essentially, 6 months really of prep, like prep, meeting with crew and going over designs and hiring crew and casting and storyboards, previs, and then many drafts of scripts. But we are here.
There is something to be said for, I just need I need a living room where there's a bedroom off to the side where Larry can walk in. And that's
Lord,
that's
Dave.
the end of our production meeting. Yeah,
it's been so long,
all in one.
Yeah.
And like, can I see it in a photo? No. Okay, I'll drive over to the place. Oh, look, it's got a bedroom on the side there. Great, we'll do it. Okay,
No,
see you guys morning. Yeah.
And you've seen the show. I know you haven't actually walked around the physical sets, but you've seen the show.
I've never seen the show. I've been lying to you these for 3 years. Yeah,
that's fine.
Now I think there's dragons in it, though, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm.
You don't own a
believe.
TV, right? You're one of those people.
I'm. Yeah, I've never seen Star Wars either. But go on.
You just love the props.
I like manufacturing. I like just know-how. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I am dying to, and in fact, I am. You can laugh at me all you want. Having had COVID recently, I have been thinking about a UK trip, like
travel bonanza.
I feel like I'm invulnerable, and I can just come there and bring you bird flu and catch some influenza H, and it'll be really exciting.
I'll sell you some eggs at a very cheap price that you can smuggle back to the United States.
Who told you about my Canadian eggs? But no, I have actually been thinking of coming because I do want to. I really do want to see the sets and want to see something and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
while you're doing it. Yeah,
you should. It would be grand to have you. But we. So when you walk around, it's the only experience I've ever had making anything in this crazy business that we're in, where every time you walk into something, you go, God, I never thought it would be so big. It's just everything is always making television. Colony, it was like you had this thing in your head, and it was like always writ a little smaller. And it's like, okay, this is cool. We're working within the confines we have. Everything is so huge. Everything is so
it's that difference between like
big.
Make sure you don't go an inch to your right, or they'll know it's like complete. Like we don't have that. Now it's sort of like, hey, can we reframe the shot so we can see that it's 700 feet long? Yeah, it's kind of good. Yeah.
Jim Clay doesn't do 4-wall sets; he does like 5-wall sets. I mean, you like live in the thing, and it's 40 feet in the air, and you can do tilt ups and be. I mean, you can barely see the catwalk.
Lovely.
It's so far ahead of you. So it's very exciting. In the prop world, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on this year, making and all that. And at some later date, we'll hopefully be able to talk about that stuff and share. But I was particularly delighted walking around the studio these past couple of weeks because a bunch of things have been getting closer because we actually need them to be on film within the next few weeks, months or so.
They work early, as they say, those props?
Yes,
they work early?
Yes. Yep. Yes. So, but I will tease this. So here you go. Drum roll, breaking news. There are 3 new Valyrian steel weapons that are being made for this season. And they're all in sort of at various stages of finish, I would say, and seeing those come along and getting to have it hands-on with Tim Lewis and who's former podcast guest and his sort of mad science, and we have our blacksmith working again, so there's some things are being forged for real again in a actual, like on a literal anvil with hammers and tongs, and it's just very exciting. And there's some real works of art being made, and I think we're even kind of outdoing ourselves as we roll forward into season 3 and 4, this crazy show that we're making.
I read the book, whatever it is, and have no memory of any weapons, so I don't know anything. I'm sure like other people right now are like, oh my God, claim giver is he's making claim, or whatever it's called or whatever.
Isn't that like an all you eat you can eat buffet in Los Angeles?
It should be claim 49.
Claim jumper?
Yeah.
Is it claim jumper? Is that the one?
That sounds like it would be in
I think
Nevada,
it's like a Red
but,
Lobster, right? Or something like that. Claim giver. I like that, claim giver. I don't think that means anything, but I like that as a name.
Oh my God, they're building soup plantation, the Valerian steel soup plantation.
Panera Bread.
But I'm assuming these are in the books, like one could reference, and or these things you've created, or a little bit of both, or
maybe a little bit of both. Yes,
nice,
I would.
Very
yes,
exciting.
Yes, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah,
I like that. Cool, very cool.
Yeah, but definitely like book fans will, in particular. I think there's one in particular that book fans would be very excited to see. So
nice.
Stay tuned.
Glimmerman? Is that the sword? Glimmerman?
Yes.
That's a long callback to many episodes ago. Should that qualify as your what's new in props? I think that's pretty good.
I think that's my what's new in props, because there's lots new in props. I unfortunately just can't really. I have to talk in sort of frustrating obtuseness about them for the time being. But at some point in the future, we'll be able to touch and hold these things and hold them up in front of the camera, and maybe we'll bring Tim back on and talk about them again.
Oh, that'd be very fun. Yeah,
he would love to do that. He's a good guest. And he's also building other insane things, because he's responsible for anything that's a weapon in the show. So he built the Scorpion for season 2 and had to engineer that whole thing. I mean, his team does it, but he's the one that actually engineers it and figures how to make it work with reasonable sort of medieval technology plus about 15%. So there are other things going on this year that not quite as that size, but much bigger than a thing one person can hold that he's doing that are quite exciting. So all
right, I may have to start watching. We'll see.
Yeah. You should see Star Wars first. It's pretty good.
All right, so make a list. Star Wars. Look, I can't watch any of this stuff till I finish White Lotus, but I'll get to it. I promise, I'll get to it.
Have you been watching White Lotus?
I am. I think I can officially say it is not for me. I'm sorry to say.
Did you like the first 2 seasons or no?
I have. I think I liked earlier seasons more.
Okay.
I never like to be critical. I don't know. This one's not doing it for me in the same way. I don't know.
It was slower to start, I think, but I think that 5th episode, the full moon party thing, like really turned it for me, and I just really kind of started digging it, and I liked all the things he was doing. And I mean, I marvel at it, because I mean, God bless Mike White, who writes and directs all of those things. It looks sumptuous. He goes off to this one location, gathers this amazing cast together. I just really respect the hell out of it. So
it's not like I'm going to stop watching. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's doing very well as well. What's new in props for you, Dave?
The great Condo. I wanted to call it like the Great Condo Migration, because that sounds like a really exciting name. But there's no migration. There's nothing.
Is that when all the condos from New York just
or this one goes to New York and stays in New York?
Florida.
But no, the Great Condo, whatever the hell it is, continues. And there was huge progress in that you can actually sit on the couches now, and the coffee table is clean and empty, which is great.
Lovely.
I may have mentioned that. So that's all been going on. The one sort of funny side effect is having gotten that great X-Wing case. Oh, and by the way, my building repainted my front door that I had like torn up trying to get the X-Wing case and the sort of the locking bolt, just like sliced the door, the paint job. And they've repainted it, so there's very little evidence that the fire ever even occurred or whatever.
Did they charge you for that, or
nope? It happened one day. Actually, it happened one day where Becky was going over to the condo to get something or put something back. I'm not even sure what she was up to. And non-prop related. And she calls me and goes, "The keys don't work." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "I can't." I'm like, whatever. The keys don't work. And at some point I get in the car and I'm heading over that way. And then she calls me and goes, "I think they painted your door and it was just stuck." And she kind of just kicked it in, so to speak. And that's how we sort of figured it out. I'm not sure I would have ever noticed it. But anyway, they painted it. But in the course of all of this, having done the case for the X-Wing, and then having done the case with the thicker plexi for the Indiana Jones, which looks really, really good. The Chewbacca case, which Chewbacca still needs his nose fixed, but the Chewbacca case now looks like garbage. It's like, because it's the thinner plexi. It was absolutely fine, but now it's just funny now that there's two of these really nice looking cases. It looks like garbage, and so like that project is sort of on the way, and a couple of others. The great, I'm sort of taking like 5 or 6 more props and just doing cases and stands and stuff and kind of getting that going. So hopefully, yeah, just a little bit, everything more
That's
presented
exciting.
a little bit better, which is nice.
That's
and it's
exciting.
nice to sort of make things you have look better. It's nice to make things you have more displayable, you know, that whole, that part of it in a nice way. So yeah, so that's been very exciting. Yeah, no, it feels like it's slightly coming together. I've started sending off photos to various toy places of just stuff I want out and whatnot. So we'll see if anybody is willing to take anything from me. So that'll be something. Books are the next great, I don't know, just insanity. Just
those you just have to donate. I mean, you just have to donate those. And just...
Some of them, there's some that are like there are some like, you know, Toshin ones that are sellable and things like that. I'd like to get rid of anything that anybody would actually take. And then yes, there's definitely a donate pile. So be it. But it's slightly, I don't know. It is. Again, I think when you saw it, it was as good as it had been, and dare I say, it's actually even better right now. We'll see how long that lasts. So I've got the guy coming in to do lights in the back bedroom now, so that'll be lights in there, and it just it's everything is dialing in a very nice way. It's now just really coming down to getting rid of the clutter, just like making these decisions of just like, where can these toy things go? It's hard. It's just tough. And I'm not going to lie. You know, I had a couple of these like Batman animated cells, and I, you know, sent them off, and they all ended up in the same auction. And, you know, I got money for them, but I didn't get what I was into them, and it made me, of course, go, oh, I guess I should have tried to do these one at a time. Maybe I should have done these myself on eBay. And it's just like, you can't have those thoughts, but it is maddening. You know, you send something off and it's just like, it didn't quite do what I wanted. And again, we're not talking giant money. It's, I get lost in the principle of it, you know, and I don't have the time to be putting cells on eBay.
No, and that's that. I mean, there's a cost associated with that you have to take into
account. No,
I
know, but I do feel like there's just got to be some way of tricking one of my children, or having a third child who we don't send to school. And
a productive one.
Yeah, we send only to like eBay school or something like that. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, just we don't tell the other two about them, and they don't know about the other two.
Perhaps an adoption is in order, Dave, and adopting an 18-year-old.
That seems mean. I feel like it's gotta be my own child that I put to work in my eBay sweatshop. But anyway, the work continues.
Not going for the Cinderella move with
just adopt a local Ash girl, whatever.
Yeah.
The work continues. The dream shall never die. Ted Kennedy. So some version of that, but
very good.
Yeah,
very good. What is the to you? I mean, what is the mark of Rome being finished over there? Is it for me? Can I tell you what it is for me? Yeah. If I walk in there one day and the dining table is just clean, and like maybe even had like placemats on it, I think that would be like
sumptuous meal. You want to eat a meal there?
Let's not get great.
I'll auction off a meal at the condo.
At the table. But that to me would say that it's done.
I think that table will always be like a quarter cluttered, maybe. So I get what you're going for. I feel like the day that the kitchen returns to normal, and I don't mean a cooking kitchen, but I just mean like a kitchen where, the cabinets, you may open a cabinet and be expecting to see like, you know, glassware, and it's just all like weird bootleg Star Wars toys, but they're all in the cabinets as opposed to like just piled up. You know what I mean? Like it's the piles that are slowly like eating my brain, and I just don't have a great answer. I don't know. I keep thinking I guess people are not even doing that. What was the online auction thing? I don't know. Maybe I just need a garage sale. Like I just need to.
That's what I thought you should. That's what I thought you should do.
Have people come over and just like not to the condo, like just come to the house or something, and not price it. Not price it the way I want to, but it's all good collectible stuff, and just see if people put the word out that it's a collectibles auction, a collectibles garage sale, and just kind of go. Here it is, but I really don't want people at my house, so I need someone to have a yard sale like near me that they invite me to, and I can set up there. I think, or like some version of that. Yeah,
find a VFW hall or something where you can like bring the stuff to and just set it up and just do it over a course of a weekend.
I mean, I need to bring in like one of those people, like one of those teams that like, I don't know, like, God forbid, like your grandparents die and you hire them to like come in and do an estate sale. And I just tell them that the owner of this condo died and everything in the kitchen and the dining room is for an estate sale. And can they just do that and set it all up? And that would be something. So yeah, maybe some
That's a good idea.
Of that. Yeah. It's tough. It does, it's steps forward and then it just like you hit a wall of things. And by the way, I'm running into things like for years now, I've been, I run these like, time machine backups on my computer. And then at some point or another, I switch out into a new hard drive and, and then I switch another one and I have these all, and I have them now at this point dated back 20 years. And you know what I mean? Like because someone said you should keep those. And so now there's a closet that has like nothing but like old hard drives in it. And it's just like, that can't be right. You know what I mean? Like at some point that seems like too many hard drives. So I don't even know anymore, but also scared to get rid of a hard drive, or like, I guess I have to like smash it and break. I don't even know.
You have to throw it into the sea. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, speaking of hard drives,
you know who didn't have a hard drive? The guys who stole the ruby slippers.
But if he had a computer, he might have been able to look up some basic information about the prop he was stealing. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't even know if that guy had AOL. I mean, that guy had nothing. I don't know what was going on. Yeah.
He did have his mind. He did have his mind on rubies, though. Which
he had a pamphlet from like 1937 that said that everything about them they were made of real rubies. That was
right.
He had a special ad from some sort of ice store in, I don't know, 1939 or something. Yeah. But yes, the rubies, this has been something we've been wanting to do for a very long time. He was our first guest. Is that correct? He was our first guest.
Yeah,
ever.
I mean, maybe Rob Klein was our first guest, but like Rhys was very, very early.
All right.
Very
early. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we this is actually a payoff to the December auction, the auction that Heritage ran in December, and obviously that was a landmark event. It kind of changed the discussion around movie props, collectibles, what all this stuff was, and the value of it, and the Americana of it. And we wanted to bring Rhys back on, and it had been 5 years, literally 5 years. So we wanted to get his thoughts on what's
5 years
changed.
And 300 seasons of The Stuff Dreams Are Made Of later. Yeah.
Yes, and White Lotus. And we wanted to touch base with them and also hear what has changed about what is known about the slippers and the story. I mean, you'll hear a bunch of that. 4K, as has done with everything else, has changed quite a bit about what is known about the slippers. And also hear, because we didn't get to talk to him. We talked to him about the theft. We did not get to talk to him about the recovery. So we get to hear that whole story. So I think it's really fascinating. Rhys is a fantastic font of knowledge. Again, my favorite book on this strange little hobby of ours.
Hit pause, go buy the book and read it first, because
and then come back and this episode will be here. Buy the book, read the book, and then hear what Rhys has to say. But should we bring him on? Should we just bring him on and just change shirts?
Let's just change
shirts really quick,
or should we just sit here quietly for a couple minutes? Yeah,
just stare. Yeah, like we're surfing at eBay.
Yeah, I mean, people are listening. They find it relaxing, maybe just to kind of
put on some elevator music.
All right. Here's Rhys.
Oz himself.
The man who will help us get to the bottom once and for all of what kind of real rubies, what the grade of the real rubies on the slippers are. author of The Ruby Slippers of Oz and fan of rubies, author Rhys Thomas. Hey, Rhys, how are you? Welcome back to The Stuff Dreams Are Made
Good to be back with you. However, the rubies are fake.
When you... Yes. No. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
I refuse to believe.
I want to just dive in and go, we had you on was that our first show or our second show or something?
It was like one of our, it was one of the first 5 episodes. It was the network's first block of orders when they're just trying to figure out whether they're going to cancel us or not. You know, it's when before the comedy gets really funny, those were wild and woolly days back there in 2020.
That was when I had my other co-host. We replaced him with Ryan, and then the show really took off. When you were on that show, which was, I guess, about 5-6 years ago at this point, Ryan, is that am I making this up, Ryan? Does that sound right?
I think we recorded with Rhys. I remember it being a COVID issue, so yeah. I think it was full 2020, like pre-vaccine COVID.
So let's say 5 years ago.
Was that when you had an associate of yours come over to my place and
yes,
okay,
yeah, right. Kelvin.
That's right, Kelvin.
Yeah, he wired you up. He wired
me up, and then he gave me a very nice bottle of bourbon.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's him. That's him.
Kelvin. Yeah.
5 years ago, I guess it's sort of a two-parter. 5 years ago, did you think the missing pair of ruby slippers would ever be recovered? And then B, did you ever imagine that upon their recovery, they would auction off for, what was it, almost $33 million, almost $32
with Hammer, $28 million Hammer price plus premium, yeah.
Well, 5 years ago, I knew they had been recovered.
So you already knew, okay?
Because they were recovered.
We're terrible. So we're terrible interviewers.
They were recovered in 2018. So they had already been recovered by that time, and I'd already gone up and seen them and met with the FBI and all of that. So I had a very good idea then where they were. At the time we spoke, they were in the possession of the FBI as evidence.
Okay.
And then last year, of course, they were released to Michael, their owner, Michael Shaw. And Michael had a prearranged deal with Heritage, actually with Joe Maddalena, who was formerly at Profiles in History and then moved on to Heritage. They had a prearranged deal to auction the pair. I'm not sure, I'm not positive, but I believe Heritage fronted the buyback with the insurance company as well. Figuring
that's what I was going to ask.
That was always our assumption without knowing anything.
Yeah. And I think it's a fairly good assumption.
What was the insurance payout? Do you know?
The insurance payout was very close to $1 million. It was, I believe, $880,000.
So Heritage, good investment.
I was going to say, though, also probably seemed like a great number to insure them before. We've been talking a lot about insurance with the fires and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That probably seemed like a really fine number to insure them for back in the day, $1 million, basically.
Yeah, sure. I think it made sense. The previous sale of a pair had been for $2 million, although Michael had them insured before that. So, we're based on, auction figures that's, started at 15,000 in 1970, went to 165,000 in 88, went up to 666,000 in 2000, and then 2 million in, I believe, 2011, 2012, the turn of the year there. So I think that was a reasonable amount. The second part of your question, I figured they would be auctioned, and in consulting with other people in the auction world, people I've known for a long time, everybody thought it would be somewhere like 2 to 3 million, maybe 3 to 5. And I said, I think they're going to go 5 to 7. And most of the people I talked to thought I was high, maybe both ways. high with the number,
literally
high,
and
figuratively, yes. So, but I didn't think they would, and I thought there was a chance at 10 million. But if I was going to make the estimate, for example, John Kelch of the Judy Garland Museum gave me a call as they were trying to hustle up funds to compete. And I believe they hustled up close to 5 million. But when I told him the estimate that I had, he kind of He didn't like hearing that number. It was a little too high for the museum. Nobody expected it to go where it went. I talked to Brian Chanas, right after the auction, and he just said he was gobsmacked at the number, and everybody was just shocked. I think it tells a lot about the memorabilia world in particular, because the shoes are now classified as, major art, which puts them in a different category. And I think with that classification by the FBI, giving some additional legitimacy and notoriety, plus the fact that they had been, thoroughly authenticated by the Smithsonian, even though the Smithsonian says they don't authenticate things, they did. And then combined with the knowledge,
well, they were certainly in a unique position to obviously match up the one and the one. So yeah, right. Obviously, yeah.
And then combined with the knowledge, the mismatched pairs, combined with the knowledge of the mismatched pairs, which I discovered back in '89, and the FBI agents had read that in my book, and that's why they took the pair to the Smithsonian. But what was really interesting was the work done by Randy Struthers, who I've called sort of a ruby slipper forensic expert, who really studied the shoes carefully under, using high-tech video. We were able to discover not just that they were mismatched pairs. The initial thought was that they had been mismatched during production because the two pairs look so different. But what turns out is they were mismatched in 1970 by Kent Warner. And what we've learned is that we're now calling them the number 1 pair and the number 6 pair, because those numbers were actually in Michael's shoes but rubbed off. You can see where the rubbing had been done. And so what we have is the number 1 pair, which is Shaw's left shoe and the Smithsonian's right shoe. And the number 6 shoe is vice versa, the Shaw's right and the Smithsonian's left. The number 1 pair is seen in approximately 65% of the film, maybe a little bit more. The number 6 pair is seen in maybe 5% of the film, very few scenes, but a couple of important ones. And then the other pairs make up the difference. Particularly Roberta Bauman's pair is probably in 20-25% of the film, and some very significant scenes as well. So we just now have a much better grasp on the when the shoes were used in the film and the subtle differences. All this forensic work is mostly based on the shape of the bows. Every bow is unique. There's not a single bow that is like another. And the heel caps turn out to be very interesting. Some of the shoes had cat's paw rubber caps, and other shoes just had a leather heel cap. And so the mismatched pairs are mismatched. One has the rubber caps, the other has the leather caps.
I was just going to say, longtime listeners of our show know from our discussions of the Indiana Jones hats.
I was going to do the same thing.
Yeah, that the bow and basically the ribbon that goes around the hat and the bow are often a key screen matcher for us.
That's how you match a hat.
Yeah, that you match a hat, because all the hats look alike, but the bows are very unique in a really wonderful way. So
right.
Yeah.
And that's the way with many costumes, many of the A-list costumes that you find. They're very subtle marks that give you a screen match.
So Rhys, if you don't want to hold it up on screen, that's fine. But you had shown us offline before we started your spreadsheet that you've made with Randy Struthers, the showing the breakdown of where every slipper appears in every scene. Can you, if you don't mind, could you hold that up again just to show the level of research? Yeah.
There you go. Look at that. That is obsessive.
Detail.
Yep.
I love it. It looks like Dave's insurance calculations these days recently. So I'm very interested in, and I love all this forensic research, and I love the fact that 4K, the advent of 4K, 85 years after the film, or whenever the Wizard of Oz was finally restored a couple of years ago, has changed the game so much in this, because it gets you, that's the level of detail that you need to get in to match those shoes. Has this experience helped to confirm at all that Kent Warner basically turned up the number of the correct number of pairs of ruby slippers, or do we think that are there slippers that are in the movie that we have not accounted for in terms of being in someone's collection, private or otherwise?
There's possibly one other pair that appears in the film. It was commonly thought that there were 7 pairs because the numbering, there's the number 1 pair, there's a number 2 pair, there's a number 6 pair, and a number 7 pair. But as Randy has learned, and I suspected, they often numbered, if there were different shoes used in a film, let's say, any film where a leading actress had costume changes. Maybe in one scene it would be the number 1 pair, and another scene it would be a completely different pair of shoes that were the number 2 pair. And then there would be a backup pair of some kind, which in case the double is now believed to be the number 2 pair, the second pair made and used by Judy Garland. But she also wore the plain shoes in the Kansas scenes. And we're figuring that might be the number 4 and 5 pairs, that there have been 2 of those. So a lot of that's still murky, but there's some suspicion that a 5th pair might exist that were seen in the haunted forest scenes. And they appear to have yellow felt on the bottom rather than the orange felt of the others. But
interesting.
But I'm skeptical.
Yeah, there's orange felt on the Shaw pair, which I saw and handled.
Yes.
My very self. I held $28 million in my hands.
The Shaw, the Smithsonian, and the Bauman pair all have orange felt. The Witch's shoes, the pair Kent Warner kept, have no felt on the bottom. And we now know that those are only seen twice in the film. They're seen on the squished feet the feet of the squished Wicked Witch of the East. And then they are in that first close-up when they appear on Judy Garland's / Dorothy's feet.
When
she's first given them and they appear.
Magically appear.
Yes. Yeah. The rest of the shoes in Munchkinland are Roberta Bauman's shoes. All the scenes on the yellow brick road, the close-up of the shoes touching the first part of the yellow brick road. So her shoes are the Munchkinland pair. And then the number 1 pair appears all over the place, and the number 6 pair appears at the gates of Oz when the gatekeeper / Oz himself, since they doubled him up there, when he sees the shoes and they do a close-up there. That's the number 6 pair. So all of this is relatively new information. This is information that was only gleaned after the Shaw's pair went to the Smithsonian, and they were able to really do a close examination of the 2 pairs side by side and to notice how different the bows were and the heel caps.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I know you said you got to go see them, you consulted whatever with the FBI. Did you see them before they went up for auction? Had you seen them in person more recently before they sold at all?
No. The last time I saw them in person was up in Minneapolis at the FBI presentation. I'd seen them before at Michael's, and then I think that's the only other time I saw that pair. I'd seen the Witch's shoes in St. Louis, and the Bauman pair, I saw them at Christie's, and then they were on display here in L.A. when they first went up for auction, and then I saw them again when they were sold the second time at Christie's. So I've pretty much seen all the pairs in person. Although I'll be honest with you, I've never touched any of the pairs. The only pair I've ever touched are the Arabian test slippers, and that was when I interviewed Debbie for an A&E documentary I did, and she brought them in.
Oh, that's right. Those were in her collection, and they sold them out of her collection back then. Yes.
Yeah, I was. Yes, I sort of brazenly / stupidly grabbed my chance to hold the ruby slippers when Nikki from Heritage said it was okay because she was watching me like a hawk. I was wearing the appropriate white gloves.
Yeah,
but they're pretty incredible to hold. I will say that there's a real I don't know, magic and power in them, not to be woo woo about it, but it was just, there was really something about being in the presence of those things that I have not felt before, generally, in the world of movie props. But, Dave and I speculated a little bit about this, and I speculated a little bit about this with Nikki from Heritage, but you got to wonder, and I wonder where you come down on this, Rhys. Does this enormous sale, we know that the Smithsonian pair isn't going anywhere. We know that the Academy Museum pair isn't going anywhere. Does this enormous sale possibly shake loose the Roberta Bauman pair that last sold? That was the pair that last sold at public auction for 165,000.
666,000.
Oh, that was the second sale. Yeah,
that was when Elka B.
So still a little room for profit, though.
Yes.
A little room for profit there.
Yeah, no, that was the 2000 sale when Elka B. and friends made off with them
it turned over
like
again.
flying monkeys. They were very fortunate in that respect. That's the last time they've been seen in public, was in May of 2000.
Yeah.
Will they shake loose?
Yeah.
My guess is yes. Because unless the collector just has them, in a basement and he goes in there and stares at them, or she goes in there and stares at them and, gets their jollies off for whatever reason, they're just now worth too much. And
that's what I do.
And the folks at Heritage, Joe Maddalena and Brian Chanas, they both know where they are. And I've talked with some other people at Julian's, and everyone pretty much believes that the shoes will reappear at some point, probably not too soon, because you don't want to have another sale right on top of the first. Although what could happen is what happened with the Witches pair in 1988. After Bauman's pair sold in 88 for 165,000, the underbidder was, or the person who had the Witches shoes, who'd bought them for 12,000 in 1981 from Christie's privately, or actually no, it was a public auction, but he privately came forward and wondered if the underbidder would be interested in buying his pair, and sure enough, they sold for 165,000 privately after the Bauman sale. So the underbidder this time around could very well get contacted and be offered Bauman's pair for a similar sum.
Sure. Or allow me to be the first to say right now, if the underbidder is listening, if you're interested in the pair with the yellow felt on the bottom, please reach out to me, contact me. No, I was going to say, I guess I'm more interested less in whether the Bauman pair sells, although I do agree, I think they will sell whether publicly or privately, but I am very curious if that's the number, if there is an additional pair that we don't know about, if there is a yellow felted bottom pair, and that's not just some weird color correction or something of that nature. If there is another pair that, that he Kent had, I guess, hidden away or whatever. And by the way, if there isn't 10 more pairs, I guess, but I don't think there are, but if there is one more pair, does $32 million bring it out of the woodwork finally? And I kind of hope it does. I think it'll be very exciting. Yeah.
Well, prices tend to go up, inflation works for memorabilia as well.
It does.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But, there's a cautionary tale here, and this is the sale of the Witches shoes at Profiles in History in 2011. The reserve was $2 million, and nobody bid. They did not pass. It was a dead auction. Not a single person bid. And I think it was because of some confusion about how many shoes there were in existence at the time. And that pair then sold privately for $2 million to the so-called angel donors who donated them to the Academy, DiCaprio, Spielberg, and Terry Semel.
That's the Academy pair. Okay, now I knew obviously they have the pair, have seen them there when they were on display, but I didn't realize that was the story. That's kind of that's fascinating.
That was
I said, I'm just hoping the number brings out the if there is a lost pair, I just want to know. I want to know the full count. I just want to see them all once. Yeah.
Well, right now the Bauman pair is the only pair we know that's outstanding, and available.
For sure is out
Although
there, yeah.
whoever bought the Shaw pair for 32.5 million could very well turn around and resell them. We don't.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a profit to be made within a year or so. I mean, I don't know what the profit will be, but for all I know, they'll double their money. I mean, it's a pretty magical thing.
Yeah. If there is a mythical fifth pair, which Randy Struthers firmly believes exists, but I'm skeptical. But if a fifth pair does show up, those would be quite valuable as well.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You would.
Sorry, really quickly, just to confirm, that's the pair, if it does exist, that you think is the Haunted Forest pair. He thinks it's the Haunted Forest
with
pair.
the yellow felt.
Yellow felt, yes. Alleged pair.
Alleged yellow felt, alleged pair, alleged Haunted Forest.
Yes. Alleged Haunted Forest. Alleged film.
Yes.
Rhys, you had suggested that there was a story, possibly apocryphal or otherwise, behind the sourcing of those the Haunted Forest shoes. Can you recount that for us?
Well, the story that I originally heard way back when I was doing the original investigation was that you have to go back to the moment. Kent Warner finds a cache of shoes. He takes them home, sorts them out, and has to give a pair to the MGM auction. The auctioneer, David Weiss, and the people he's hired have no clue that there's more than one pair, which is the same. When I started this, I had no clue either. So Kent gives them the one pair, the so-called MGM auction pair, which are now the Smithsonian pair, and says, here, look what I found, the ruby slippers. But he doesn't say that he found any others. And then, based on the numbering of the shoes, 1 through 7, and the fact that some numbers are missing, a lot of assumptions come up, and we all know what assumptions are. But one of the assumptions was that Toto had chewed up a pair, or at least a shoe, which actually was corroborated by a couple of munchkins. But then again, Jerry Marin then claimed that Judy Garland had given her a pair later in his life, and we know that wasn't true. So, in any event,
Judy Garland chewed up a pair.
Yes, the other story that went around was that they
were starving her to death. That poor girl. They were starving her to death. And I understand if she just got a little hungry on set, they wouldn't give her food. You chew a pair of the slippers. You need nourishment.
Well, I'll tell you something about her in a minute. The other theory, the other rumor, was that there was an older costumer, a woman who had been at MGM for years, who was going to blow the whistle on the whole thing and was given a pair to shut her up. And that pair then allegedly went into the hands of her daughter, and then and her daughter and her very shaky husband, and then that pair were allegedly stolen from the daughter and have since. Randy Struthers believes they're in a storage bin somewhere out in Palm Springs. But
okay.
I'm
there
leaving,
you go, storage warriors.
Yeah, I'm leaving it up to him to flesh that out. That's all on him. As far as Judy Garland goes, I mean, early in my research, I was told that Sammy Davis Jr. had a shoe.
Oh, interesting.
And Sammy believed it was an actual ruby slipper. But what Sammy actually had was a ruby slipper award that had been given to Liza Minnelli. And Liza famously said, my mother hated those shoes. She had wanted to have nothing to do with them because they reminded her of the experience of being tortured little Tilly on the set of Oz, having her breasts strapped down so she, didn't look as old as she was, even though she was 16, and so-called Dorothy was also 16. But nonetheless, the idea that Judy Garland wanted or had a pair of shoes went out the window.
Right. She just wanted as far as away.
Went out the window pretty fast.
I know we don't like this. Right.
Yeah.
I know we don't like to speculate a lot on prices, because, we like to think of ourselves as more about the collecting and whatnot, but
we like to wildly speculate on everything else, just not prices.
But we're to take one moment to speculate on prices. What do we think that if the straps that held down Judy Garland's breasts were up for sale, what do we think those would go for? Yeah.
If you could find them and authenticate them. I'm
pretty sure Sammy Davis Jr. had at least one of them. Yeah.
Well, possibly.
By the way, he had an ape log statue.
Yeah.
That was in the auction of his stuff, by the way.
He had a what?
He had an ape lawgiver statue. That was in his estate sale. Yes.
Like screen used, like from the movie?
I believe so. Yeah. I think there were two and he had one of them. Yeah.
I actually have a copy of his will. I did when I was at Fox Entertainment News long ago and far away before Fox went the other way. I did a story on I knew Sammy's manager pretty well, and he got me a copy of Sammy's will shortly after Sammy passed, after it had been read. A lot of very interesting things in there. Sammy's ruby slipper, by the way, was not authentic. It was an award given to given to Liza, Lorna, the kids of, Jack Haley Jr. got one, and it was called the Ruby Slipper Award. And if you look at it, it looks nothing like an authentic ruby slipper. It's just a facsimile.
It has purple felt on the bottom.
Something like that.
It doesn't match anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wanted to jump back to the FBI and the case and whatever. Having now very much on the far side of it, and they kind of, I guess let's start with, I mean, I don't know. I guess I was surprised at the end of the day by how mundane the crime was, the perpetrators were, I don't know. Obviously there was a certain amount of stupidity to it all. I don't know. Did that surprise you in terms of I think we all wanted it to be like they were stolen and transported by jet to a secret island where they were, like Dr. No, where he's got like the Mona Lisa on display. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't that. It couldn't have been more opposite than the sort of the Dr. No example. It all felt
rather Florida to me.
Well, Florida's LinkedIn. The shoes apparently spent some time in Florida. On the one hand, I mean, we all know from the news that the story that the guy who stole them thought they were real rubies on them. And then he tried to fence them with a jeweler, and the jeweler laughed at him and said, "These aren't real stones. They're worthless." But the shoes themselves are not worthless. I think it very much was like realizing they had stolen the Mona Lisa. Now, what do you do with it? And
how do you sell it? Yeah, exactly.
And the fact is, they couldn't sell it. They couldn't sell the pair. What they had was a big burden on their hands. And the only thing they could try to do was to quietly recoup some cash from the insurance company. And that's what they made a move to contact the insurance company. The insurance company alerted the folks in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, the detective who had been working on it, and the FBI was brought in, because once a move has been made to collect from the insurance company, suddenly the word extortion comes in, and extortion is a mighty word, and that I think becomes how the FBI set up their sting, pretending to be the insurance agencies. And
do you know how much they were hoping? Do you know what the number they asked for was? Like, what were they like having thought they were stealing something covered in rubies, and it wasn't. So thinking that they were, I don't know, stealing something worth millions of dollars, that the jewels would have value. I don't even know.
If it was actually, by the way, I'd be curious to know what they would be worth if they were actually covered in rubies that size. I'd like to know.
Harry Winston made a pair with real rubies, and priced them at $1 million. I don't know if they ever sold, but that there was an actual pair of ruby slippers made with rubies. I don't know what.
I guess they should have stole those. Yeah.
I don't know what the offer was, the supposed offer from the insurance company to buy them back. And insurance companies do this a lot with stolen goods, especially with lesser known things. Let's say they've insured a Rolex for, 60,000 or whatever a Rolex is worth, and it's recovered, or it's found and offered back to the insurance company, rather than, they want to recoup some of their money, so they might offer, 10 grand or my thought was maybe $250,000 for the shoes, since the insurance price was, close to $1 million. But I don't know. I have no idea. The FBI was very circumspect with me. Well, I'm sure I didn't help them very much. I probably helped them a little. They offered me very little information because they were still part of an ongoing investigation. They let me in on a couple of things that indicated how the whole thing went down, and so I don't know. I was never able to talk to anyone at the insurance company. They just shut down. They wouldn't talk about it at all.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I love that these two morons basically, they stole the Mona Lisa and then they essentially, in a very complicated way, turn themselves in for it. I enjoy that part.
And don't forget, buried it in their backyard in Tupperware at some point. Yeah.
I mean, we should all be keeping our props in Tupperware if that's what they look like when they come out of it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I think it was a much more organized operation than we've been led to believe. I do think that they were lesser criminals, but they engaged some sophisticated help. The middleman was a lawyer who had been involved in being a middleman between stolen art before. He'd been involved in a theft of some Rockwells, coincidentally also up in Minnesota. So,
Bart, let's get him on the podcast. Yeah. Take a note.
There was a story in the Washington Post a few years ago, the Washington Post magazine, by, I know her first name's Elizabeth. I can't remember her last name. She wrote an excellent article that really advanced the whole story, and it's worth reading. If you look up Washington Post magazine and Ruby Slippers, you'll find it, and it's a great read. It's really long, but it's really good. And she basically tracked down several of the people who were involved in the middle people who were involved in the insurance scam.
So would yours, when you say a little, like, because they were more high end, like this lawyer and whatnot, do you think, I guess, feel free to speculate. Obviously no one's holding anyone to anything. Do you think, in terms of like the idea that maybe someone did order it up, like, I guess here's what I'm asking. Was it still, though, even if it was more complicated and more advanced, did they all still think that it was covered in real rubies? Or do you think anywhere in there was somebody going, those are cool, like that they have value unto themselves? Or do you think it was always about the idea of, I guess, breaking it up and selling it? Because what I was going to say was, there's a horrific case, and you can read, there's some really good articles about it. There was one recently, speaking of articles, that I'll try and find and put in the show notes, which is basically a couple of years ago, the Yogi Berra Museum in New Jersey was broken into, and they stole Yogi's, all of his World Series rings. And they have now pieced together that this was an ongoing operation by a crew that was doing jewelry stores, but then started hitting various museums and stealing World Series rings and plaques and whatnot. And it was purely for the value. And they melted down the rings and popped out the stones. The Yogi Berra's World Series rings are destroyed and gone. And they were doing this, and the meltdown value, it wasn't even that great. Do you know what I mean? Like they destroyed these historical rings and all these other plaques and trophies belonging, like they would hit these like small museums, very similar to the Judy Garland Museum, maybe not the greatest security and whatnot, just steal anything that they could melt down. It's kind of like the way you hear about, like, people stealing like piping and like, things to like melt
copper
down.
thieves.
It's so almost low rent. It's insane, but they were a well-skilled crew, and they did this and they destroyed it. I guess what I'm wondering is, when you start to think like there was a more high-end guy, are we thinking that the more of the, I guess I'll say, the Minnesota version of organized crime, that it was more involved, but that it was still about
jewels, or somewhere do we think it was ever about they are the ruby slippers in quotes, not as opposed to they are ruby slippers? You understand what I'm kind of asking?
Well,
like, what are your suspicions, I guess? Yeah.
Well,
Dave is saying morons stole them, but did morons
tell them to
mastermind
steal
the
them?
heist?
Yes, I guess that's what I'm asking, sort of.
Well, for starters, the Yogi Berra string sounds like a more sophisticated outfit to me.
They definitely were. They definitely were. It just their take home money was not, considering what they destroyed. You're kind of like, maybe you should have stole something else. Anyway, not the point of the story. Yeah.
Well, you start at the beginning.
Sorry, really quick, Bart. Let's get Yogi Berra on the show. Okay, let's make a note of that. Okay, go on.
The only easy day was yesterday.
To start at the beginning, it was a fairly clumsy break-in. I mean, you've got shattered glass. You've left a sequin behind, and then purportedly you think that they have actual jewels on them. As the story goes, this fellow Terry, what's his name? Can't remember his last name, but he takes them to a fence. The fence laughs at him, says those aren't real jewels, and then the clumsy one hands them off to somebody else, to a compatriot who's just pleaded guilty to the similar crimes that were charged in the first case, and that person then seeks to hide them and try to figure out what to do with them. And so for 13 years, the shoes are held in secret and not tracked down. And that tells me that half of the operation was a little more sophisticated and thought a little bit more about what they had and realized, in fact, there was no way they could ever sell them, not even on the black market, that their only recourse was to, once the insurance payout was known, that they could get some monetary gain from the insurance company. And that's where more sophisticated people were involved.
Makes sense. So kind of more after the fact. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But just to clarify for our listening audience, they are covered in real rubies, yes?
They're covered in a bunch of rhinestones and bugle beads. The jewels on the bows are actually what tell us the difference between all the pairs of shoes and the shape of the bows. They were all.
That's exactly what someone who doesn't want to know their real rubies would say.
Yes. Mm-hmm. When the shoes were made in 1930, late 38, 39, they cost about $13. They're about $13 worth of total materials. So, and that's labor included.
But during the Depression, that was $28 million today.
Close, yes. It translates to 32.5 with the premiums.
With the VIG, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You said you tried to talk with the insurance company and got nowhere. Did you ever try and request an interview with any of the involved parties, the criminals themselves at all? Is that something that would you like to talk to them, or I don't know?
No. I'm at the point where I'm getting pretty close to passing the torch on this. I thought I was done with the Ruby Slipper story, a few years after the book came out, when all the hubbub died, the initial attraction died down. And then, but the story kept chasing me. And I came back to it in 1998 when I was working at Greystone Television. And we did an A&E special, The Search for the Ruby Slipper.
Right.
So it came back to me then, and I gained new information then that I learned who the MGM buyer was at the time, and actually spoke with him, had a very interesting conversation with him, and got some great information out of him. But then I dropped it again, but I kept hearing little bits of news, most of it people dying. Ted Smith died, Bill Thomas died, various different people died, and I started keeping tabs on little bits of information, and then in about 2016 I realized, all right, I should do something here. I should do a reissue of the book, and people had asked me all the time about doing a reissue. So in 2017 I started putting it all together as a last chapter. And the last chapter is easily the longest chapter in the book. It covers a lot of ground. And that's the chapter titled 30 Years Later. And I had learned new things about the shoes themselves. I'd learned new things about a lot of the people involved. And so I folded that all together into the style that the book was originally written, and came out with the book in 2018. And again, thought I was done with it, but the story wasn't done with me. And so once the FBI contacted me, I mean, that's when I was thrown back into it. And then the last auction, when Brian Chanas called me up and asked me if I would do the write-up for the catalog, figured, okay, this is close to the last hurrah. I don't know how much more I can do. I'm closing in on the age when I'm almost as old as the movie is now. So.
Well, when the Haunted Forest pair shows up, Rhys, that's going to be where it all comes full circle.
Yeah, I think my contribution going forward will probably be, if I'm lucky enough to write a few more catalog entries, and tell people the story of Kent Warner, which is really where my interest is. I'm more interested.
Sure, that's where it started.
Yes, my book is really a biography of Kent Warner, and I was much more interested in him than in the shoes. But my editor at the LA Times was more interested in the shoes than Kent. Although he was interested in the whole thing.
Forgive me if we covered this on the last one. It was many years ago. But did you, because you published the book in the sort of late 80s, Kent died in 1984. Did you ever meet him? Did you ever speak to him?
I never heard his name until September of 1986. So I spent the better part of 3 years chasing a ghost. Never met him. Right. I did my best to track down anyone who did know him. And I found a number of different people, and they're mostly represented in the book in one way or another, some anonymously, some not. But no, I never met Kent. I think I would have liked him because he had a sensibility for preserving history, preserving Hollywood's history. And he couldn't understand why all this stuff was being just thrown away. The shoes. Yeah. And he before anybody else did, he understood the value of Hollywood memorabilia. He saw the future. And being someone interested in history, that's sort of why I think, and obviously he was a real character. I think I would have enjoyed his company. I would have stayed away from the thievery that was going on. But he really was the Robin Hood of Hollywood. He was he liberated so many really important costumes and props that would have been thrown away. So I always say
that was the only way to get out. It's like if he
stole
had
from
been
a garbage
checks.
pile. He stole from a garbage pile, but
yes,
who knows? Maybe he would have said, "Hey, make me look good in the book. Here's something in a box. It's got green. It's got yellow felt on the bottom.
I stole it from the customer."
Yeah. Yes. The fact is, there are three very big important items that are at the Smithsonian that he spirited away.
Right, because of him. Of him. Yes.
2 Ginger Rogers gowns. 2 Ginger Rogers gowns, a Fred Astaire top hat, and the ruby slippers. They're four important items that he basically got to the Smithsonian.
In this last batch, I guess, or this last period of time, the post 2018, where the ruby slippers have sort of reached out and grabbed you back into the story when you thought you were out again. You mentioned Kent and sort of how you started off in a biography. In these last couple of years, have you learned anything new about him, the person, or him, the man, or anything? I know it's been very much about the robbery and stuff, but have any additional new people come forward, or just interesting tidbits about him in the last couple of years? Forgetting about the shoes and the thievery for a second.
Well, most of his close confidants are all now gone. The saddest part of the whole story, was the scourge of AIDS. And
right, of course,
as I began tracking down his friends, there were many occasions when I learned someone had just passed away. They had, became part of the dark undertow of the whole story. For a while, I used to get notes, kind and otherwise, from people saying I knew Kent or didn't know Kent. Probably the last real revelation I got was one of Kent's mentors, a fellow by the name of Bill Job, who had been particularly rough on me when I was doing the initial investigation. The first thing he told me was that he didn't know Kent, he didn't know anything about the shoes, and that was it. And then I spoke with him a second time a couple years later, and he admitted that he knew Kent. And other people then followed and told me Bill Job was his mentor in the costuming business. Person he really felt like a father-son relationship. So that's probably the most recent revelation. And I suspected at the time that he was lying to me. And he's passed away now as well.
But why did he obscure it? Why do you think?
He was protecting Kent. There was a lot of protecting Kent. Kent's mother refused to accept the fact that her son was gay. She just refused to accept it, was in complete denial. And when he contracted HIV and eventually full-blown AIDS, she completely shut down on talking about him, or as one of the people I met said, that she could have been a great asset to others later on, for survivors and family survivors. But what she did was she sold all of Kent's stuff at a massive garage sale that, probably the garage sale of the ages, considering what Kent collected. And then at his funeral, there were no words spoken. It was just, he went into the ground and that was it. And the people I talked to who were at the service said it was like hauntingly creepy in a particular way, because his mother, who went by the nickname Shadow, because she was a very I wouldn't say controlling, but he was her best friend and she was his best friend. They were very, very close, but at the same time, there was this veil that they threw over his sexual orientation, which was kind of a sad reflection. His sister also shut me down. They all protected him, and her comment was, "Who cares about a frumpy pair of shoes?" So it put things in perspective for me. But at the same time, I was on a chase. I was a cat after a rat, and or I should say a mouse. And but nonetheless, I was very much consumed by the story and the chase itself. So I just kept at it.
Did you tell her, Rhys, that those frumpy shoes were covered in real rubies?
No, she didn't want to talk to me about the shoes.
Is it true that when they buried him, he is wearing the missing seventh pair of the ruby slippers, and that we don't know where he's buried, but if we could find where he's buried, we could find the slippers? Yes or no?
I don't know how to answer that. I know where he's buried.
That's not a denial. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. Perfect. All right.
So,
good luck, treasure hunters.
I do have a number 7 question, and we sort of blazed past it, but
yeah.
Has there been any thinking that there are 7 pairs of shoes simply based on the numbering system on the shoes? I know there are some missing numbers that we haven't seen, so they could it doesn't necessarily mean that it was number 1 through 7, but that is where your mind goes with how these things work.
Well, the initial thought.
What do you think?
The initial thought was that there were 7 pairs of ruby slippers, based on the fact there was a pair marked. Okay. Well, there's a shoe marked number 1 and a shoe marked number 6 at the Smithsonian.
Number 7.
No, there's
okay.
At the Smithsonian, the right shoe is marked number 1 and the left shoe is marked number 6. The witch's shoes, the pair Kent Warner kept, were marked number 7. Roberta Bauman's pair was marked double. So what we have there are the 1, the 2, the 6, and the 7, and it was always assumed that there were 3 missing pairs of ruby slippers. But something we've learned in the years since, Judy Garland wore other shoes in the film. She wore those sort of, flat black pair in the Kansas scenes. And that very well may be pairs 3 and 4 or 4 and 5. And
if they were just Judy shoes. Yeah, sure.
But they were numbered Judy Garland number 4, meaning they're in the Kansas scenes. And you remember all movies are shot way out of sequence. So the Kansas scenes were shot at a different time. There was some great work done by John Fricke, who's another Oz biographer or Ozographer of sorts. And he was able to...
I like Ozologist.
Yes, Ozologist. Well, Fricke would be that person. Yeah. He'd be a great person for you to talk to as well, because he's very versed in the other memorabilia from the film. But Fricke put together a timeline of the order in which the scenes were shot. And it's pretty good. And so everything was shot completely out of order. So they would have been... pulling costumes together and numbering them as the scenes dictated, not as the movie flowed.
And there were also like 3 directors on that film, so it started and stopped and was reshot, and there were Arabian shoes.
So you're saying
were the Arabian shoes numbered?
No, they were not numbered. Okay. No. But
it is possible Kent was buried wearing a pair of shoes with 2 pairs of shoes, 1 in each pocket. So 3. Totally.
I would doubt that. I'd be skeptical on that.
Covered in real rubies? Yeah. That'd be worth your time. I'm just saying,
I think Kent would have rather. Kent had a capitalist vein to him. He
would have sold. He would have sold. Yeah.
Money was important to him, especially in his later days. So he sold off a lot of stuff. I think he sold off his ruby slippers and only got 12,000 for them. He was very disappointed. He thought he would get 20. And that was in 1981 when he knew he was afflicted with something, but didn't know what exactly yet.
Yeah.
I think the lesson is don't buy props or steal props thinking they're going to be worth something. Just be happy with what you're getting. Don't worry about don't try and make money or
buy what you love.
I should add there's
buy what you love. Yes.
I should add there's one other rumor, and that's that the auctioneer insisted that all the other pairs be destroyed once he found out there were other pairs, and that Kent actually destroyed a pair in front of the auctioneer. However, there's no proof of that, and that story may conflate with the silencing pair, the shut up pair that went to the MGM costumer.
Fascinating. I know you want out in the sense, but I think there's more ruby slipper madness to come, and this is going to haunt you to the end of your days, my friend. I think,
and as are Dave and I, Rhys.
Yes, you will be back, Rhys. You will be back
5 years from now.
I don't know if it'll be another season or 2 or when, but you will be back talking about the next phase of this story. So we very much look forward to seeing you then.
Well, it's frustrating in a sense that this is a story with no ending. And I personally like stories with endings. But this one, the only ending I think I'm going to have is my own.
Fair enough, but I still think this should be what we're going to hear. We're going to hear from you again.
We'll find out.
Ryan, anything? Yeah, Ryan, anything else to ask about?
No, I'm good. This is neither here nor there. You can't really see it here, Rhys, but in that back case, I have a little connection to the Kent Warner saga. So in that back case, you can see the orange jacket. That's
you got to go like that or something, right? You got to
over here.
Okay.
Oh wait.
Oh no,
way.
There.
All right.
On his over his right shoulder in the case on the side of the room, you can kind of see the orange there.
Okay.
So that way. Yes, correct. Right there. Yes, right there.
Okay. That is that's a Blade Runner costume. It's Deckard's, Harrison Ford's blazer, and the shirt beneath it, I believe, I was told, came originally from the Bill Thomas collection. Oh, so it was something that he had found in because all this most of the Blade Runner stuff that wasn't kept by the costumer ended up at Real Clothes when Real Clothes was still around, when they were the secondhand shop that was selling all the stuff from the movies. And I guess he knew what it was, or knew what film it had come in from, because he had a connection at the place. He kept it. It meant nothing to him because it was a dumb 80s movie, but he knew it would be worthwhile and traded it out at some point. So in the provenance description line of what that shirt was once part of the Bill Thomas. I did not get it from Bill Thomas, but it was once part of the Bill Thomas collection. So, I immediately recognized that name from the from your book.
Yeah, Bill died in 1995, and I went and searched his, the probate files and everything, and that he had, of course, had told me that he had a pair and they were locked away in a safe deposit box. So I went on the hunt for them, and shortly after he died, to see if a pair of ruby slippers showed up in his probate, which they did not, and I wasn't surprised about that.
Ryan, is it true that the Blade Runner shirts are covered in real diamonds?
They're on the inside.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see them on camera. Very cool.
Correct.
Very cool.
That's how I protect the diamonds and also keep the shirt in its screen use configuration. It's really a win-win for me.
Yeah,
Nice.
Dave,
Nice.
you seem to have an obsession with jewels.
Just real rubies, just real rubies. It's my favorite part of the crime of just it's like a scene that if it hadn't happened and you wrote it into like a movie or a show, you would get a network note like, our guy seems really stupid. I'm not sure the audience is going to buy that they thought it was covered in rubies. And yet, yes, they did. I'm just saying it's a great scene. He shows up at the fence in the middle of the night, whatever, opens it up, and the guy's just like, you fucking moron. Anyway, I love the comedy of it.
If Mel Brooks,
the comedy of life.
If Mel Brooks had written it, I'd go for it.
Fair enough. More than fair enough. Yeah.
Rhys, you should see Dave's monkey radiator cap collection. If you session with Jules, he has quite an Art Deco monkey radiator cap collection. It's for another day. Rhys, this was terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you for returning
thank you again.
to the podcast.
This was really fun. Yeah.
All your wonderful scholarship on this topic that we love so much. I will say I've done you a solid over the years. I continue buying copies of your book, and I never buy a copy of your book one at a time. I usually buy 3 or 5 of them because in my now doing this dumb podcast, I talk to people a lot. They're always even if they don't collect, they're always fascinated in the stories and whatever. And then I eventually tell them the story of the ruby slippers or some version of it. And I have handed out, I keep them here because I keep just handing out books and saying, go read the people get fascinated. I say, go read this. And so I've been a good ambassador for the Ruby Slippers.
I hope you're buying the new one as opposed to the old one.
I am.
Good.
I am. Yes. You need to. In all seriousness, I'm making a pitch and a petition here. Get the book on Kindle, because I think that would be a really great way for you to continue to sell it, because that's how so many people read nowadays, is on ebook.
Well, I've had that suggestion delivered to me many times, but I'm absolutely lame when it comes to that sort of thing. Even though I put together the new book all by myself and managed to get it in print, but someday we'll get it done.
I bet we could help. I mean, we know somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be required for you to type it in yourself into the Kindle. I think we could find somebody that would help. But
we're going to investigate.
It would be great.
It's all about the formatting. I mean, I have the whole thing in PDF and in Word form, so I'm sure it wouldn't be for someone who knows what they're doing. It's probably
I bet you it's easier than we think. Yeah. Exactly. Do you get, I don't know, like quote unquote sales reports where when the ruby slippers were like up for auction, whatever, you noticed more books were moving? Do you get a sense of that? Or
oh yeah, I can see that on Amazon and through Lulu where the new book is published.
Nice.
And if you buy off Lulu, I get a bigger royalty, so that's nice. But Amazon,
that's lulu.com.
But Amazon, they track, where it ranks in their sales. And there's always a spike. Whenever there's Ruby Slipper news, there's a spike. So, and that's another carton of eggs at Trader Joe's.
Yep.
There you go.
That's another one single egg at Trader Joe's.
And
I found the Lulu link, everybody. Yep. Don't buy from Amazon. Buy from Lulu. We're putting it on the social feeds, and we'll push it out there for
Well,
Rhys.
I appreciate that.
Rhys, anywhere else people can find you? Do you want them finding you on social media or anything
no.
or website or anything?
Nope.
Just lulu.com. Buy the book there. Don't leave the man alone and just go buy the book at lulu.com. He doesn't want to be found.
Yeah. I took computer programming in college in 1975 when the internet was born, connected between my school, UCLA, and Stanford. And I realized right then and there that everything that went out there would stay there forever, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So I have assiduously avoided all internet connections. The only thing that you can find me on social media wise is LinkedIn. And that's because a good friend of mine helped write the software for it. And he virtually forced me to go onto it as part of a beta test. So that's that's the only way you find me.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Lulu.com. Buy your book there, not Amazon.com. The Ruby Slippers of Oz, the new edition, which is wonderful. What else? We like to play a game sometimes. We'll play it very, very quickly.
Yeah.
If you could have any prop in the world from the movie Wicked. Have you seen Wicked yet? It's sort of Oz related. What prop would you have from Wicked?
I have not seen Wicked.
Make something up. So, just make something up. Have you seen a commercial for Wicked? Just say anything you like. It's got a lot of Oz stuff in it.
The silver shoes. Sure, why not?
Yep, there you go. See,
there you go.
That goes back to
they're real silver, by the way. They're real silver.
Brings it all right back around.
It goes all the way back to L. Frank Baum and the parable of 19th century populism, which is how I got into the whole story to begin with.
Look at that.
There you go.
Look at that. Ryan, what do you want from Wicked?
I haven't seen it yet either, Dave.
Really, your kids aren't like
they're
obsessive?
into it. 3 hours in the movie theater. I was sort of like, can we watch it at home? So we will watch it at home. I haven't seen it yet. I think the costumes in that movie generally are fantastic. Everything that I've seen. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a witch's hat. I was sort of thinking about the witch's hat. I knew I never owned the ruby slippers. But I was looking at that witch's hat in Heritage. I was like, maybe I could get a witch's hat one day. That's not going to happen either. So maybe I can get one from Wicked.
Have you heard about the controversy surrounding the witch's hats?
We heard about the lawsuit.
Yes, we have.
We do not want to get sued ourselves, so we'll leave it at that.
Moving on.
I don't know. I probably would have gone with the silver slippers myself. I did watch it. Maybe a Galinda or whatever they call her costume is kind of cool. Just
were your kids into it, or was this just
Malin
you?
loves it. Malin loves it. I watched it alone. Becky hasn't seen it, and Freddie didn't care. So some version of that. Yeah.
The only thing I really collect are first edition books, literature, and old manual typewriters. Portable manual typewriters.
Like Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Something like that.
Very cool.
I mean, I used to write everything on this old manual, and then I had trouble with one of the keys and had to get it repaired, and I was in the middle of writing something, so I went to some thrift shop and bought another old one, and before I knew it, I was buying manual typewriters every time I saw one for $5. So I have a rather large collection of $5 manual typewriters that apparently are worth more today. I should get in touch. I should get in touch with Hanks.
The collecting gene is strong in you. Well, again, this was fantastic. Please find us on social media at Props Podcast. Please rate and like and give 5 stars to this on your podcast app, and follow us and subscribe on YouTube, where you can see this and other videos. Ryan, anything else?
Write us at dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com, and come back next week for more fun and more rubies.